Interesting matchup, kind of under the radar. What's good? It's Woog. We've got Jack Catterall, 30 wins and 1 loss, taking on Arnold Barboza Jr., 31 wins and 0 losses. Look at how close these guys' records are, by the way. We've got the 30-1 Jack Catterall, 31-0 Arnold Barboza, and that 1 loss for Jack Catterall was a fight against Josh Taylor. At the time, it was for undisputed. I felt so bad for Jack Catterall when that decision was announced. Most people thought that Jack Catterall deserved that win. They gave it to Josh Taylor. So if you were to flip that 1 loss into a win, both of these guys would be 31-0, and they both have pretty low knockout percentages as well. Jack Catterall has 13 knockouts. Arnold Barboza has 11 knockouts. So it's kind of interesting. Both of these guys, you could say, are surging. I mean, Arnold Barboza Jr. is coming off of a win against Jose Ramirez. Jack Catterall is coming off of wins against Josh Taylor and then Regis Prograis. If you were to have told me 3 years ago that Jack Catterall would have wins over Josh Taylor, and again, my eyes saw Jack Catterall beat Josh Taylor twice, but he's got the 1 win over Josh Taylor. So if you were to have told me that Jack Catterall would beat Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis, if you were to have told me that 3 years ago, I would have been like, Jack who? And that's because, he was fighting lower level fighters. For a long time, his best win was against O'Hara Davies. And then he became the mandatory for Josh Taylor's title. We got the fight that we got where Jack Catterall blew everybody's expectations. I mean, we were looking at what would be next for Josh Taylor. How would he continue this undisputed legacy? We, at the time, at least myself, looked at Jack Catterall as being like maybe a tricky matchup, but kind of a speed bump on the road that Josh Taylor would get through in his hometown of Glasgow, Scotland, and that Josh Taylor would continue to go on to bigger and better things. But this fight ended up being like the beginning of the end of prime Josh Taylor, to where he ended up just forking over his belts, trying to secure that rematch in a fight that he won. But he was so hell-bent on running it back with Jack Catterall to prove all the doubters wrong. And that fight eventually, the rematch eventually happened a couple years later, and Jack Catterall beat Josh Taylor again. I mean, you know what I mean? Again, to my eyes, in a fight where it just proved that Jack Catterall was a sharper puncher between the two. I mean, that was kind of evident in the first half of their first fight. And it was even more evident in the first few rounds of the rematch. Like, Josh Taylor was getting beaten up, outboxed clearly in the second fight. But through his ruggedness, his determination, his fighting spirit, he did fight his way back into the fight, made it a very competitive fight. I remember Bob Arum jumped in the ring after the decision. I mean, this was a unanimous decision win for Jack Catterall. I mean, he clearly won the fight by a couple rounds, especially in the way that Jack Catterall even finished the fight strong. But Bob Arum was just like raging in the ring, saying that he wasn't going to come out to England again. And I mean, I was like, damn, Bob, is this the hill you want to die on? Arguing that Josh Taylor won this rematch? But no, Jack Catterall, again, kind of leveled up. He just keeps on exceeding his performances, performance after performance. And then he fights Regis Prograis. And the first few rounds are interesting. It looks like Regis Prograis kind of hurt Jack Catterall a couple times. I mean, it was a very patient style fight. Prograis was kind of stalking, coming forward. Jack Catterall's got that reflex style. He takes a step back, then throws a very hard, accurate counter. Super well timed. I mean, he's not a knockout puncher, but look, I think that his power is a little bit underrated. I think that his timing and his speed really kind of contribute to his punches' effectiveness. But the first half of Catterall versus Prograis, really competitive. I thought, again, Prograis was coming on stronger and stronger in the 3rd through 5th round. I'm like, damn, is Prograis about to beat Catterall? But then Prograis either slowed down or Jack Catterall picked it up. Something happened where in a couple of those exchanges, Catterall landed with super nice, again, well-timed counters and sometimes leads, and he ended up dropping Prograis twice throughout the second half of the fight. And by the end of the fight, he was just beating up on Regis Prograis. And so Jack Catterall wins a unanimous decision against Prograis. So again, now he's got a win over Taylor, win over Prograis, a win over an aging Jorge Linares. And Linares was never like a 140 guy, so I don't make too much of that. But Jack Catterall, you want to talk about overachieving, given what your reputation was, being like a kind of a mid-tier fighter just 2 to 3 years ago, to now, at least according to like Ring Magazine, being the number 3 fighter at 140, and 140 is one of the best divisions in the sport. Like we'll talk about that later. Tons of good fighters, exciting fighters, varying styles of fighters. But yeah, Jack Catterall is about as good as any. And this fight between Catterall and Barboza, it's going to be for the WBO Interim 140 title. That's the belt that Teofimo holds. So in theory, the winner of this fight should be next to fight Teofimo Lopez. But I don't know, like Jack Catterall, we've seen him get promised, title shot. If you win this, you get a shot. And I mean, look, Jack Catterall's rise has not come easy. Neither has Arnold Barboza. They've both paid their dues, beaten multiple good fighters, and have been knocking on the door of getting a title shot. In the case of Jack Catterall, this would be his second title shot, because remember, he had that first opportunity at Undisputed against Josh Taylor. But one thing that's interesting about Catterall versus Barboza is when you look at the betting odds, Jack Catterall is a -225, a greater than 2-to-1 favorite, whereas Arnold Barboza is a +225. I don't think that the odds should be that wide. Like, to me, this is damn near a 50-50 fight. Arnold Barboza is a really good fighter. Again, he just beat Jose Ramirez. Now, granted, Jose Ramirez has been fighting like one time a year for the past few years. So I don't think we're dealing with the same Jose Ramirez that we were against, when he was fighting Maurice Hooker. I kind of look at that as being the best of Jose Ramirez around that time, from the Maurice Hooker just before that to, his undisputed battle with Josh Taylor. I mean, I know Jose Ramirez ended up stopping Richard Comey, but I feel like his legs aren't as springy and steady and sturdy and strong as they were just a couple of years ago. I mean, they say that legs is the first to go, and he's a pressure fighter. He's looking to kind of pin you closer to the ropes so he can let his attack go to the body. That's what Jose Ramirez really wants to do. He wants to jab and get you to start backing up into the ropes to where he could do his best work. Arnold Barboza was just able to pivot, counter, basically out sharpshoot and outbox Jose Ramirez from distance. He had the snappier punches. He seemed to have the better reflexes. And again, his mobility allowed him to get out of harm's way when he needed to. I mean, Jose Ramirez still did have some success getting Barboza's back against the ropes, but Barboza was still able to fight pretty well, even in those instances where he was backed up. I thought that this was a clear decision win for Arnold Barboza. But one thing that makes me think that the success that he had against Jose Ramirez, who's a very different fighter than Jack Catterall. Again, Catterall likes to kind of take a step back, crouch low. I mean, they call him the Cat, and I feel like that's a very fitting nickname. Very different style than the come forward pressuring Jose Ramirez. But in Barboza's fight just before Jose Ramirez, he fought Sean McComb. I think it was on the Haney versus Ryan Garcia undercard. And Sean McComb, a lot of people thought deserved that win against Arnold Barboza. He was just countering very effectively, outboxing Barboza, just hitting him with clean shots. Yes, Barboza did rally in the second half of the fight, won a couple more rounds late in the fight. But I thought that the lead in the 10-rounder that Sean McComb had built, I thought that he won about 6 to 7 rounds in that fight. In fact, when they read that decision, it felt like a robbery. It really did. I was like, damn, I was thinking by the time that the fight was over, I was thinking, damn, what does Arnold Barboza do now that he's lost to Sean McComb? But then they, again, read the scorecards and they gave the win to Arnold Barboza. So that was, again, the fight right before Jose Ramirez. Sean McComb is a southpaw. Jack Catterall is a southpaw. I really wonder if a lot of what Sean McComb was doing effectively against Barboza will also work for the even quicker, even more elusive, even better time. I mean, Sean McComb was really timing his punches well, but I mean, the more experience. I mean, Jack Catterall has fought a few 12-rounders against good fighters. So he knows what it's like to be in the trenches as the fight goes deep. He knows how to work out of difficult situations. Not that Arnold Barboza, doesn't have some of that experience. I mean, look back at his 2020 fight with Alex Salcedo. That was a sensational fight. They went to war. So Arnold Barboza does have a lot of grit to him, and he is also a very good boxer. I mean, technically, I could see Jack Catterall having difficulty with, because Barboza's not going to just rush Jack Catterall. I don't think Barboza's just going to be running into shots. He himself is a pretty patient boxer. Plus, he's got the height and the reach advantage. Not that Jack Catterall hasn't been against fighters who have a height and reach advantage. I mean, Josh Taylor did, but again, Josh Taylor, very different style than Arnold Barboza. So I really do look at this matchup as being like close to 50-50, but I really think that Jack Catterall is just peaking at the right time right now. And no, I don't think he's gonna pull away On the scorecards here, I think this is going to be a very close fight. Both of these guys have really good reflexes. I could see there being like some lulls if they're just kind of like waiting for the other to make a move first. In those instances, I could kind of see Barboza edging some of those rounds where there's such little activity, because I think he could fill some of that dead space with the jab and with overall higher volume than Jack Catterall. But I think that there are going to be a lot of exchanges here as well. And again, I trust the elusivity or the elusiveness of Jack Catterall a little bit more than Barboza, especially when you start factoring in some of the tricky angles that Jack Catterall likes to take as he's like letting the other fighter kind of push the pace. And I think that, you know, some of the contact that Jack Catterall is going to be making is going to be cleaner contact than Arnold Barboza. I mean, Jack Catterall tends to make his landed shots look flashy, and it's largely because of his posture, his style. He just frames his stuff really well, where it looks like, ooh, it just looks like it splashes well. Again, very accurate. This is really a tough one to call, but I'm going to lean Jack Catterall via split decision. I think this is going to be a very close fight with a mixed bag action-wise. A lot of lulls, and then it picks up in certain moments. At certain times, it looks like Barboza might be having more success. He might start letting some punches go to the body. He's got a good two-fisted attack, and he puts his combinations together pretty snappily. Like, both of these guys are sharp punchers. But again, I think that there's just something about what Jack Catterall's got going on. I feel like he's a little bit more of a special kind of eye-catching puncher, a little bit more so than Barboza. I mean, they both move well. I think Jack Catterall is more of like a step and slider. Barboza has slightly more active feet. He likes to kind of go in and out. I mean, he keeps kind of like a wide base, a wide frame, a lot of distance between his legs, but he's still able to kind of move in and out of the pocket really well. Again, he was able to do that really well against Ramirez. But I'm going to lean Jack Catterall. Both of these guys are going to have some success, but it's going to go, I feel like going into the scorecards, there's going to be a lot of tension, like who won? I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, but I'm going to go with Jack Catterall doing slightly more than Arnold Barboza, the slightly better work. I think, again, Barboza might throw more punches than Catterall, but I think that Jack Catterall's style and his ability to make you pay when you come in, it's going to nullify some of Arnold Barboza's activity in, again, a similar way that Sean McComb did. But yeah, I'm going to go with Jack Catterall via split decision. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. Who do you see winning this one and how? And in this 140 landscape, again, one of the best divisions in the sport, which one of these two guys would you give a better shot at beating the current WBO 140 champ, Teofimo Lopez? And again, this is such a talent-rich division. You've got Devin Haney. Assuming he comes back to 140, I think his upcoming fight with Jose Ramirez is actually going to be at 147. So I don't know if Devin Haney's coming back to 140. I mean, he's a big, you know, relatively big young dude. And then there's Ryan Garcia, who I also have doubts is ever going to come back to 140. I mean, his next fight against Rolly Romero, I think that's at 147. But otherwise, you've got Alberto Puello, who's got, you know, one of the belt holders in the division, just beat Gary Antoine Russell. You've got Gary Antoine Russell, Richardson Hitchens, Liam Paro, Subriel Matias. You still have Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. I think Oscar Duarte is, you know, he was gonna fight Prograis. He's at 140. You've got Jose Valenzuela. Like, you've got a lot of good fighters at 140. Isak Cruz is at 140, even though I didn't love his last performance. I don't think 140 is the place for him, especially when you start going up and, you know, fighting the better boxers at 140. But yeah, super talent rich division. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.